Root beer. It's a bit of a, I guess, a delicacy or a novelty here in New Zealand. We don't really have root beer as a main soft drink. It's either ginger beer or ginger ale or Allen P or any of the other Coca-Cola range. But it's something that I quite enjoy. Even though it makes a gross slurping sound out of a can. I like the flavour. Call me an old man if you like, but it's something I want to try more of. And I've only ever really tried 3 brands, being this one called A&W, which is the generic go-to one that you find in your corner dairy store and that sort of thing. Some of the fancier ones around Wellington where I live, I think that it's called Frank's, the Royal Crown Cola of root beer. And then there's this one I found today as I was looking for examples called Shasta root beer, which I don't know if it's as nice. But why I'm making this video today is I want to make some root beer. There's lots of recipes online that you can find. It seems pretty easy, pretty straightforward, just like making ginger beer. Except some of the ingredients aren't very common in New Zealand, and some of them you can't even really get. So your standard root beer is made out of a whole bunch of herbal roots. So we're talking Sarsaparilla root, ginger root, dandelion root as well, licorice root, and also the leaves of a plant called sassafras. Sassafras? I've never heard of it before because it doesn't grow here. So unfortunately, some of these things, mostly sarsaparilla and that sassafras, I can't find easily. So I'm going to put a bit of a New Zealand twist on it. There are some things that I can bring in. First of all, because we're making this as a home brew, we're going to start by making a ginger bug so that we have a natural living yeast to make the drink out of. So that's what we're doing here today, and then as this video unfolds we'll take steps to make the rest of the stuff. Sorry, just sniffing this because this was a jar of peanut butter. It's still got the peanut butter smell, but I'm sure it'll be fine for making a ginger bug. So I'm sure I've covered off this before in my how to make a ginger beer video during lockdown, but a ginger bug is effectively a yeast nutrient. It's where it's like a petri dish for a probiotic bacteria to grow in. It's just a combination of clean ginger. So if you've got mold growing in it, like this one, you just want to clean it, scrape it out with your fingernail or whatever, and just, you know, slice that ginger up, dice it up, grate it up if you like. Don't chop your fingers off like I nearly did. And you're just going to add it to some room temperature water with some sugar, and you add the same amount of ginger and sugar each day, and as you do that, that's going to feed the bacteria that come in there, and because it's got ginger in there, it'll be a good bacteria and it will be a probiotic, so it's good for your gut. A lot of the stuff that goes into this root beer is good for, you know, helping cleansing the blood. Sassafras leaf helps cleanse the blood, and sarsaparilla was like a gut tonic and that sort of thing. So effectively we're making something that will be healthy, unlike this, which is just carbonated water with syrup in it and sugar. But I do want to capture some of the properties of these soft drinks and put it in here as well. One of the main things that all of these have is a caramel flavor or caramel color. So we will be using a bit of brown sugar when we start the mix, and I'll slightly burn it a little bit just to get that caramel flavor. But I guess that the main issue that we have here is how are we actually supposed to make root beer if we don't have 2 of the key ingredients that I've mentioned, which is sassafras and sarsaparilla root. Well, there are some things that grow around the bush here around my house which I think will be good equivalents. And the first one of those things is SuppleJack, or its Latin name is Ripogeum sandens, or if you prefer the mouldy name, it is Careo or Parita, which basically means twisted rope. Now this stuff I use all the time around here. I've used it to build fences and stuff like that, little woven fences around the place. I didn't realize, but when you look up sarsaparilla in New Zealand, it comes up with this straight away. So it's a common vine weed that grows here native in New Zealand. So I have a whole ton of it right here, these black ropes, and it grows amazingly well here. It can apparently in summer grow up to 5 centimeters a day, which is pretty cool. Let me just melt this, not stab myself with my hatchet. I have no idea how I'm going to harvest this stuff, but I've got a few shoots here where I've harvested the vines. So now it seems right now that we're going to harvest the roots to do, use that as well. You'll notice here there's these nodes that grow off. They kind of look like roots. Well, that one's a bit rotten, so I don't think I can use that one. There's one here, and then they shoot off onto other vines and grow and like grab each other they can grab and look like hands, which is quite cool. Oh, this one's brittle. So I think this is what I'm looking for, but in the ground. This is one from a vine that I've harvested. So I need to find one that's a bit fresher, I think. Juicy. Juicy is what I'm looking for. Oh. I think I can use this. I mean, do I use just that part? Is that the root? I think that's what I'm meant to use, potentially, because it's a little bit more supple. So I think I got what I need from up here. There is one more ingredient which we'll loop back to when we get to the end of the list of ingredients that I'm going to replace. But the next thing we need is licorice root, which is a fairly common thing, I guess, in all Western and even Eastern cultures, and easy enough to find online. So I did a quick Google search. I found a place that sold licorice root, organic licorice root, 100 grams for like $6.50, and then the shipping on top of that was about $10. So you weren't getting that much for the price, but then I stumbled upon another place further down the Google rabbit hole called Wali Co Limited, which is in Auckland. They sold dried slices of licorice root for $9 for 200 grams, and shipping on top of that was quite reasonable. So through the power of editing, I already have that package. I ordered this on a Thursday and it arrived on the Friday. So let's have a look, open it up. Compostable packaging, a note, and the root, the licorice root, as they promised. Can't smell anything through the bag, I didn't expect to, but we've now got the next part of this. So the next thing to get for this is going to be ginger root, turmeric, vanilla bean pod, cinnamon stick, Star Anise pod, and some sugar, both brown and white. I say all these last because they're very easy to get a hold of in the supermarket. Everything else was a little bit weird, which is why I improvised it. And then last of all, which my lovely wife was kind enough to provide, is some dandelion root, which you can just pull on out of your lawn if you don't take that much high maintenance of it. That should be anywhere, you know, you can just go dig it out. So now we've got everything, we're ready to start the actual cooking process tonight. We've got the Shasta root beer from the local dairy. We'll just try this one. Not as good as the A&W, hopefully we can make a better one. So what we're going to do is, we're going to start with adding 10 cups of water to this pot thing, and we're going to add all of the roots in there in various measurements. So measurements are 3 tablespoons of your sarsaparilla, but I'm going to use SuppleJack root, 1 tablespoon of your ginger root, which I'm going to grate up and pop in there, 1 tablespoon of licorice root, which I have dried out. It's almost like wood or bark. It's very hard, so that's fine. 1 teaspoon of turmeric, so I've got quite a bit here. I'm going to grate that up as well with the ginger. 2 teaspoons of the dandelion root. So with this, I guess I'm just going to chop it. The 1 whole cinnamon stick, so it's good as it is. Same with the vanilla bean pod and the Star Anise pod as well. And I'm going to add all of that to the pot, and I'm going to bring it up to the boil and let it simmer for 30 minutes. So that's going to make like a bit of a tea with all the roots in it, which is why it's a root beer. Towards the end of that, I'll add 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. In a separate pot, I'm going to simmer and melt some brown sugar, just 1/3 of a cup, just to almost burn it, caramelize it, and give it that sort of burnt caramel flavour. And I'll add that in while it's boiling, so it will dissolve and become part of that overall concoction. And then the last thing we're going to add, just as we turn off the heat and let this whole thing cool down, are some Kawakawa leaves, which I use a lot of. So we're going to use these Kawakawa leaves in place of a root that would normally go in called sassafras. I think that's how it's pronounced. I can't get my hands on it anywhere near here, but it's described as having a sort of almost pepperminty flavour, and that's kind of what Kawakawa has as well. So we're going to chuck that in right at the end so it doesn't lose that flavour, and just let that steep and make a bit of a tea. And we'll let that cool down to room temperature. And then you remember the ginger bug that we made at the beginning of this whole thing. This is now 3 days old and it's totally fizzy. We're going to strain it and add 1/2 cup of that right around the time that this is room temperature, so that we don't kill the wild yeast that we're growing in there, and so that it can then do its thing. Once that's all done, it's ready to bottle up, so I will strain it through a funnel into some of these pre-sterilized bottles, cap it up, and just leave it somewhere at a standard ambient temperature for 2 days so that it can carbonate any longer, and we're going to run the risk of these bottles exploding, which could be fun. And After that, I've got to chuck them all in the fridge to stop that carbonation process, slow down the live cultures inside, and then it should be all good to drink. So by Saturday, we should have a nice, refreshing root beer if everything here goes to plan. And here we are finally after 2 days, 3 technically, of sitting in the cellar and then a few hours sitting in the fridge. We've got our product here. So first things first is the carbonation test. Is it carbonated? There was no fizz there. Only 6 bottles for the amount of effort and no carbonation. Disappointing. I consider this a failed project. You didn't think I was just going to let the video end there, did you? Well, it did. I'd forgotten about that whole project for over a year. It's now summer of 2022. Some stuff's happened. And thanks to that stuff, I managed to rediscover this brew. The downside is that this is the second to last bottle, but it is now fizzy, I've discovered. So something's happened over the last year to kick off enough activity to create some CO2 gas in the bottle. And so we're going to pop the top off this one, and we're going to taste the flavour. So I'm just going to open it on my little handy desk bottle opener, and that actually sounded good. It's got a little bit of a fizz, so let's pour some into this glass. First pour. There we go. It's not too murky. That was something I was worried about. There's a lot of sediment at the bottom of the bottle, but it's turned out almost... It's not as dark as usual root beer. Let's give it a try. You get the nice... It's a subtle flavour. It's not a kick in the face, rich root beer flavour, but it is nice and subtle. It's almost like a kombucha, you know. Those more muted floral flavours. It's not bad. It's something that I'd do with a bit of rum and maybe a squeeze of lemon or lime, or any brown liquor would go really good with this. The caramel flavour from the burnt sugar has gone really well. Where did I put that bottle? It's gone really well with the caramel flavour of this rum. So that's amazing. I have enough in there for the next bottle. So that's really great. So just today I've started a few other things that I'm going to make with natural ingredients that are nearby. I got some Kawakawa flowers, which is like the New Zealand Christmas tree, and I've made a syrup out of that. So if you're interested, I'll show you how I'm going to turn that into a Kawakawa Christmas mead. But for now, I'm just going to have a nice little sip on this, upload this video, and talk to you all again really soon. Just like me, they long to be close to you. Just like me, they long to be close to you.